Good evening, everybody. Good evening. It's now 7 p.m. It's July 15th. Owen Sound City Council. This being our only meeting in July, it's a fairly heavy agenda. We have a dress code rules that say we can relax a little bit in the summertime. We don't have to wear suits and ties, so we picked this one meeting in July to wear an ugly shirt instead of an ugly tie, and we'll debate later perhaps who won the ugly shirt contest. I know I've got my vote that I picked who's winning already, but and I say that with jealousy. Councillor Dodd is ill tonight, not able to attend. Councillor Tamming is also unable to attend, so we're a little bit more narrow tonight than usual. We did not have a closed session, although we started at 4 o'clock this afternoon with a special meeting to start the development charge process for the next round and become informed on that. So we're moving into our open session. Council, is there any additional business? Staff first, maybe? Seeing none from staff. Council? Councillor Gregg?
Thanks, Mayor Body. I do have an item as it pertains to the Rogers cellular tower at the marina.
Others? Go ahead, Councillor or Deputy Mayor Larry.
Thank you, Worship. Just announcing a fastball tournament on August 6th.
And anyone else? No? Okay, and I'll have one matter tonight, and only one that matters in our community right now, I think, is some of the things that have gone on in our community in the last couple of days I want to comment on. Down to number 18, motion that the Committee of the Whole rise and report. Will you have that, Carol? No. Oh, you've got it. Oh, sorry. Yeah, thanks everybody. Our meeting's over. We've done everything we need to do.
Nice try.
Okay, I flipped pages to put it where it was going to line up. So disclosure of pecuniary interest first. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Thank you, Worship. I have pecuniary interest in item 12C. There's 6 restaurants in that technical report, and I have shares in a restaurant.
Good, thank you. Go ahead.
I wish to declare pecuniary interest for the additional item that Councillor Gregg brought up, since I am affiliated with Rogers TV as host and co-producer of a community health information program.
So that'll be the additional item. Okay. Number 6, confirmation of council minutes.
Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor O'Leary, that the minutes of the special council meeting held on June 18, 2019, as printed, be adopted.
All in favor? That is carried. 6B.
Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor O'Leary, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on June 24, 2019, as printed, be adopted.
All in favor? That is carried. Number 7.
Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor O'Leary, that City Council now move into Committee of the Whole to consider public meetings, deputations and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports of city staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business.
So all in favor? That is carried. So we're now in Committee of the Whole. Number 8 on our agenda is public meetings, and we don't have any. Number 9 is deputations, and we've got several tonight. One is our annual presentation from James Skoniak, and he'll introduce David. Maybe he'll even let David speak this time. So that's Bruce Power update, so it's our annual update.
I tried to convince David to do the presentation, and he refused to do it, so I don't know. But you can ask him any of the tough questions. So
okay.
David Abbott's with me. He's our new Director of Community Indigenous Relations, and welcome, David. He joined us relocated from Toronto, and we're thrilled to have him in our area here now. So
welcome.
You'll be seeing lots of David. Now I'd like to jump into the presentation. I know the slides were distributed in advance, so I won't do sort of a death by PowerPoint because I know you've been in meetings since 4 o'clock. But what I thought I would do is really touch on some of the key points, and really the four key areas I'd really like to update council on in terms of this annual update is really on some of our key focus areas in the community. Really a number of environmental aspects related to the electricity market in Ontario and the role that we play as a generator. I want to talk a little bit about medical isotopes, and then, of course, our operational performance. But first, I'll start with the commitment to the community, and I know a couple of members of council also serve on Grey County Council, so you're hearing this for the second or third time, so I apologize. But you know, when we look at our opportunity for our employees to contribute to the community, for the company to make contributions to the community, or our broader supply chain, one of the key focus areas we continue to hear from people is the importance of healthcare in the local area. And so we had the opportunity, actually, at an Owen Sound Attack hockey game in the first quarter, to announce a record $1.5 million contribution to healthcare in the region. And that will be in addition to both our Environment and Sustainability Fund and our Community and Indigenous Investment Fund as well. And you know, we continue to hear just how important local healthcare is, whether it's from pensioners that previously worked at our site, whether it's our neighbors and friends in the community, and also employees that we are looking to recruit. You know, as we are an organization that plans to be in business through 2064, you know, we're investing in recruitment and in training. And one of the first things people ask is, where are my kids going to go to school, and what's my health care like? And sometimes there can be a perception, especially with folks that are relocating up from urban areas, that somehow by moving to a rural area, you know, they don't want their kids to have less of an education than they would in an urban area, or access to health care. So, you know, these are important investments for the community, but they're also important investments for us to encourage people to relocate to the area, which is absolutely essential. Year to date, and the mayor is aware of this because Owen Sound's been quite instrumental in this, we had a multi-county focus on relocating companies that supply services to Bruce Power, to relocate them so they would have a local presence around our site. And as of yesterday, we actually have 55 companies located in the Tri-County area that are now providing services locally here to our facility. So again, those folks will you know, also value that access to local health care. You know, one of the key things that you know, especially this time of year when we have higher temperatures, for example, over the course of the last week, we had some of our record electricity demand for the year in the province of Ontario. In the hottest day in Ontario, with air conditioners running in the Greater Toronto area and across the province, we hit over 20,000 megawatts of demand. And at that time, 65% of our power in the province was coming from nuclear power. As of this morning, actually 75% of our power was coming from nuclear. One of the things that's really unique about our market in Ontario is we actually have one of the cleanest electricity systems in North America. Actually, most of the Canadian provinces have very clean electricity systems. And the primary driver behind Ontario having such a clean electricity system is really through the phase out of coal-fired electricity, which as many of you know, that was in fact, one of the world's largest climate change reduction initiatives, reduced smog days in Toronto from 45 to 0. We haven't had a smog day in the Greater Toronto area or Southern Ontario since 2014. And that's almost entirely through the phase out of coal-fired generation. But what people often don't talk about is 70% of the electricity needed to phase coal in Ontario came from our site. Our $10 billion investment program, where we increased our output by returning units to service, improving the operation of the units, it was 70% of the energy needed to phase coal out. The Asthma Society of Canada has a really good report that they issued on this front. It's an independent report that actually looked at this, and it's something we're very proud of. If you're concerned about the environment, if you're concerned about climate change, if you're concerned about smog days, or your kids being able to go to school, whether they have asthma, and not being worried about them rushed to the emergency room, you should be concerned about, you know, the phase out of coal in Ontario and the energy sources that got us off coal. Because it's great to get off coal, and we know that coal is a polluting form of electricity, but coal was also a very reliable form of electricity. You could always count on it. So the supply mix that has replaced coal has also come from very reliable sources. And you see this in this slide. You know, Unit 1, it's one of our what we call refurbished units. We invested in the unit to extend its life another 30 to 35 years. Achieved a post-refurbishment record run of 193 consecutive days, and you see on Unit 5, 520 days. Sometimes when we share these statistics, people think, well, is that safe? Is it safe for a nuclear reactor to run with that level of reliability? And what I always like to remind people is if you think about the most commercially competitive nuclear units in the world. They're also the safest units in the world. And why is that? Because there's two really important factors when you're focused on operational performance at a nuclear plant. The first is, are your people working safely, and are they doing all of the right things every day in their jobs? Are they following their procedures? Are they following our 4 pillars of safety? If the answer is yes to that, you get very high level of unit performance. If you're, in the other area is what we call equipment reliability. If you're proactively investing and doing maintenance in the plant, investing in new technology and driving high reliability, that's where you also get record runs. So this tells us that the work our people are doing every day safely and reliably. And when we say safety in a nuclear plant, we really talk about 4 pillars. We talk about reactor safety, environmental safety, industrial safety, and radiological safety. But this also tells us that we're making the right investments in the plant, so the equipment is robust and very reliable. I want to talk a little bit about medical isotopes. This is an area that often isn't really associated with our industry. Bruce Power, in March of 2019, March of this year, we announced the first harvest of what we call, it's called HSA cobalt. It's basically a medical grade cobalt used to treat brain tumors. And we are now going to become the world's largest supplier of this. So, you know, 1 in every 24 hours, a Canadian is diagnosed with a brain tumor that needs to be treated. One of the many new innovative treatments for brain tumors is a technology called Gamma Knife, which effectively can shrink and in many cases eliminate a tumor without a physical procedure. And our Cobalt-60 on site, which we started harvesting in 2019, we are now exporting that around the world. All 4 of our Bruce B units are producing this, so we'll become the world's largest supplier of this isotope. We already supply an isotope which we call low specific activity Cobalt-60, which is used for sterilization. So if any of you have ever been to a dentist or a doctor's office or a emergency room, any of those swabs or needles that come out of a package absolutely sterile, which reduce the chance or risk of infection, chances are that has been sterilized by our Cobalt-60 from Bruce Power, and we supply about 40% of the world's Cobalt-60. And then last week we announced a very exciting new project where we are starting to produce a new isotope called lutetium. We're going to start production in 2022, working with a number of Canadian companies. And lutetium is a new medical isotope used for the treatment of prostate cancer. It's hugely effective in that. And when I describe lutetium to people, I really describe it as a heat-seeking missile. The great thing with the lutetium isotope is that it finds cancerous cells, it's attracted to cancerous cells, and actually helps destroy or eliminate them. And we see the capability we're developing to make these medical isotopes as a capability that can be expanded to make other isotopes. Because keep in mind, our business is not making medical isotopes, our business is generating electricity. So we fully funded the asset to generate electricity. For us to add an ability to make medical isotopes is a huge strategic advantage for our region. Because we have 8 reactors, we have redundancy, and we have a long run to 2064. So effectively, it's not inconceivable to think within a 5 or 10 year period, the Bruce site would be a global leader in the supply of a whole array of isotopes, which we should all be very proud of. You had the chance to read through on the bus tours and the post-secondary program, but one of the things I would like to talk a little bit about is and elaborate on my previous comment is on economic development and the broader economics of what we're seeing in the sector. The 2 key priorities from an economic perspective that we have is, again, ensuring that this multi-billion-dollar, multi-year refurbishment program we have underway, we want to make sure that money stays, in the first instance, as local as possible. And I alluded to the 55 companies that are located in the Tri-County area. When we provide people contracts, when people bid on work, one of the bid criteria has to do with their localization efforts. So it's not only an encouragement. If you want to win work competitively at Bruce Power, there's an expectation with respect to localization. You've seen some of that in Owen Sound. I think there's a lot of opportunity for more of that. We also have requirements around Indigenous content. Our facility is located on the traditional territories of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation. We respect that. And of course, we want to see more and more economic benefit to the Indigenous communities, not just the San, but also both the historic Saugeen Métis and the Métis Nation of Ontario. And the final thing I'll end on, and it's always electricity prices, because it's great we're doing all of this stuff here, but at the end of the day, Ontarians want also not only a clean source of electricity, a reliable one, but they also want an affordable one. We generate and sell our price of power under one contract with the IESO. There's no subsidy, there's no anything. It's one price of power. You only get paid if you generate. We will receive on average this year about 7.5 cents a kilowatt hour for every kilowatt we produce. If you looked on your electricity bill before the Fair Hydro Plan came into place in 2016, you were paying 13 cents a kilowatt hour for your electricity. So if you could run an extension cord to Bruce Power, you wouldn't need you wouldn't just get a 25% reduction, you'd get much more of a reduction. Nuclear and hydro, between both sources of electricity, average about 85% of the power in Ontario, and they're around 40% of the cost, 50% of the cost. So what I always like to say to people is, if you want to talk about economies of scale, a lot of people like to focus on the fact that we're spending billions of dollars, and they assume that with that comes a high price of power. If you want to look at what's driving the cost of electricity in Ontario up, you just have to look at the facts. It's not us. We're actually a stabilizer of rates, and we'll continue to do that. And more importantly, when we refurbish the units over the long term, we'll be able to maintain that stability. So anyway, that's all I wanted to cover tonight. Feel free to ask David and I any questions you may have. I didn't go through all of the slides because I know you had them before to read in advance. I'd be happy to take the time for any questions.
Thanks, James. Questions? Not seeing any. County, we got a lot more, I think. That's you must have done a better job tonight.
Well, and they read the slides, and maybe County Council didn't.
That's
No, I'm joking. Thanks very much for having us.
Yeah, we
and,
appreciate the visit every year and the update. Obviously, Bruce Power is such an important to our, as you say, hospitals and those things, as well as economic spin-off. I think we're looking at 4 or 5 different companies that are established within Owen Sound right now that are Bruce Power suppliers going forward with refurbishment, so that's pretty important for the whole area, and we look forward to continuing to work with you and moving ahead. So,
Thank you. And if I just had just one final comment, if it's okay. The suppliers that have relocated to the area, they give us really good feedback. We ask them, how was the process? They give us very good feedback on the city, an organization that's been good to work with, the staff, helping people find things out. And when you're a company and you're relocating to an area, that's the kind of feedback you want to hear. So just pass that on to your staff and your team here, who I think have done a fantastic job.
great, thank you very much. Thanks again. Thanks for coming. Thanks, David. We'll see you again. Next, at 9B, we have Mr. Kafalis, Director of Public Works and Engineering, with regard to 10th Street Bridge detours.
Through your worship, and thanks for having me again. Not that you have any choice, but sometimes I think you wish you did. But anyways, some of you have seen this presentation at least twice, and this is the third time's the charm. This is it right here. Anyways, as we all know, we have to replace the bridge, and in doing so, we have to take 10th Street out of commission and come up with a detour that will help serve our residents and visitors alike. And we're anticipating a 14-month construction period. We're about to award a contract tonight, hopefully, and once we do that, we'll be able to determine what the actual period will be. So in order to replace the bridge, we have to come up with a robust traffic management plan. So we started around this time last year, the project team, which consisted of city staff, GM Blue Planet Paradigm Transportation Solutions, working on possible detour options. Paradigm initially explored 6 different detour alternatives. During the initial review process, members of the project team identified a 7th alternative, a hybrid, one of the 6 initial alternatives or options. When we were evaluating what we wanted to do, we wanted to take into consideration the current drivers' habits, the impact on local business in the downtown, and the volume of traffic that actually be moved through town. And as you know, on the long weekends, we do get a lot of traffic coming along 10th Street. Something that, unless you experience it, you would not actually imagine that would happen in a community of our size. But we are a busy community during these beautiful long weekends in the summertime. So I'm not going to go through each alternative, but we had 6 alternatives, and for the people at home and for these, anyone that's reviewing the presentation, you'll see that I've highlighted several key points in each of the alternatives that really helped make our decision not easier, but based on our current evaluation criteria, it helped us quite a bit. So when we talk about one-way pairs or using Second Avenue East, we know that those options really provide a hindrance to our residents as well as visitors. So when we went through all of them, you know, we had also one alternative was do nothing, which again, I guess, as I indicated earlier, if I was looking for a new job, I think that's the option I'd be recommending, because I'm sure Wayne would give you my pink slip the very next day and say thanks for coming and it's nice having you, but it's really not an option. I mean, it's always something you look at, but in this case, it can't be an option. So we went through the screening process. We eliminated everything to deal with one-way pairs. And, you know, there are some communities like Montreal and Hamilton where people are used to having one-way roads, but this isn't one of them. And we felt that if we did include one-way pairs in our detour, we would create a lot of confusion, especially when you come down to a road and you're used to turning left and or right, and then you say, well, I'm about to go left, but no, I can only go right. Would just create a lot of tension with the community. People will be happy. And again, using Second Avenue East, again, you can imagine trying to detour all that traffic during rush hour and having people trying to stop and park in front of our storefronts and many of our merchants in town. There'd be no way that would happen. It would definitely have a negative impact on the businesses downtown. One thing that we never considered was making the bypass road our main detour route. There was no way we wanted people circumventing our city. We want them to come to our city. We want to enjoy all the amenities we have. Like this weekend, we had Harbor Fest, which is a great turnout. And again, a detour location. And we want people, even during that, when we have our detours, to still come here and visit and take the time to come to our special events that we have in downtown. And we have quite a few of them within close proximity to downtown. We want to make sure in the years to come we'll have even more. So. Again, what we did is we created one of the alternatives was alternative E, but then we said one thing that was wrong with the original E was that it wanted to use 4-lane cross sections, meaning 2 lanes in north-south, both along 3rd Avenue East and 2nd Avenue West. But then when we started looking at 2nd Avenue West, we realized the road wasn't wide enough to put 4 lanes in. And if we did, we'd have to actually have a negative impact on one side of the road, actually on the east side of the road. And, you know, for 14 months, we really want to start taking away people's yards and driveways. If we did that, you'd have a driveway where you'd have to buy a smart car because that's the only thing that would be able to fit into it. So we said that wasn't an alternative. Again, there was a cost associated with that. And, you know, it might be a little more hardship on the drivers and motorists trying to make it through town, but again, this is only going to be for 14 months, and given the lifespan of this next bridge, which will be well over 100 years, it's just a small little time for us to endure some hardships in terms of being motorists in our community. So we said we've eliminated that, and so we said what we'll do is we'll actually create a 3-lane cross section on 900 block of 2nd Avenue West to address, to become our detour route. So there it is. I'm sure we can all see that very clearly. And now that we've all taken it in, we'll try and motor our way through the detour. So the advantages of E1 is we have 2nd Avenue West, 3rd Avenue East West, A Street and I Street will have adequate capacity to accommodate increased through traffic volumes. Only lane reassignments required on 10th Street intersections, retains multiple north, south, and east-west routing options through the study area, which is something we want to maintain, again, 2-way traffic. Disadvantages, again, remedial measures will be included, changes of traffic control, which means the stoplights will have to be adjusted to accommodate the traffic, especially when we talk about turning. We'd have to have, needless to say, every traffic detour will incur delays. There's no getting around it. There's no perfect solution for creating a construction detour. It's a necessary evil. We try and make the best of it. In terms of all the alternatives, this alternative that we're promoting is one that has the least significant in terms of congestion and queuing the network throughout the, and when I see that queuing at the different exercise, it has the least significant of all the other terms in terms of overall impact. It does require some removal on-street parking in select locations, and again, there will be increased traffic on all roadways between 3rd Avenue West, 4th Avenue East, 8th Street, and I Street. So let's make our way through the detour as quickly as we can, and some people won't be going as fast as I am, that's for sure, but we'll do what we can. So as we make our way eastbound, coming down 10th Street, you'll notice that we'll have lane designation signs. Those are the black signs up there that'll clearly identify which lane you can do what. So it's either a left-hand turn, straight through, right-hand turn. So you'll come to 2nd Avenue east, and you'll be required, if you want to make it through town, you'll have to turn left. We still give the option, because there are a few businesses on 10th Street, so you'll still be able to create a little bit of a U-turn on 10th Street to go to the drugstore, and there's a couple of other businesses on there, so they still have to have access to their businesses. And again, we still have people that want to head north on Gray Road 1. So after we make the turn on to 2nd Avenue, this is where the intersection is where you'll see we'll have some restricted, this will be like the no left-hand turn intersection. So as you're coming down there, we expect you to drive through, and we figure any left-hand turns will definitely create a congestion at the intersection. So a lot of individuals, when you're going, doesn't matter if you're going east, west, north, south, you won't be able to turn left. And that'll be the biggest change there. We'll make sure we're going to communicate it well with everybody. And again, part of the overall detour route will have new line painting and all these signs to be posted, which will be a responsibility of the contractor. Needless to say, we'll be working with them hand in hand and making sure that he adheres to this, and that if any changes that need to be made, they'll be made. So we make it down to the next intersection of 8th Street. So here we are, we're coming down. This will be quite new to our community, having 2 lanes turning left at this intersection to get along 8th Street. We'll see how that works. We imagine that it'll work extremely well. But again, what we're going to try and do is we're looking at maybe also putting lines going right through the intersection, showing the turning lanes to help people maneuver their way through the intersections. You'll see a lot of communities will do that, and especially when you have 2 lanes turning left. So now we've made it onto 8th Street, across the bridge, and we're making our way down 8th Street. We keep going. We have 2 lanes that are heading east. We'll finally come to 3rd Avenue, and there's where we'll start making our way back up to 10th Street. So essentially what we're doing is taking 10th Street and trying to bend it, and then we kind of stretch it apart. So it's kind of creating almost like, you know, when you go down a separated highway and it's separated. That's what we're trying to do. So now we're going up, we finished making our way up to 10th Street. We're heading up. Again, we have 2 lanes in the 900 block heading north, and once we get to the next block, or sorry, the 800 block, then we get to the 900 block, we'll have 4 lanes. So still 2 lanes heading north. We'll be able to make our way onto 10th Street or continue up 3rd Avenue. So now we're going westbound. So we come motoring down the hill. We've just finished working out. We're trying to get to work, or we're trying to get to the other side of town. We make our way to 3rd Avenue. We can have 2 lanes of traffic being able to turn left to head south on 3rd Avenue, or we can continue along 10th Street to make our way to 2nd Avenue, either north or south. So we make it to the next intersection, and here's pretty simple. We get to the next intersection. We have 2 lanes where we can turn left, go straight. The inside lane will be able to turn left. The middle lane will be able to go straight forward. You have 3 turning options, go straight forward or left or right, and then we make our way onto 9th. So on 9th, again, we have 2 lanes designated for westbound traffic. Again, we make our way. You can see all the signs indicating what you're allowed to do in those specific lanes. We cross the bridge. We get back to 2nd Avenue West, and again, we're allowed to make 2 left. We have 2 lanes that will allow us to turn left on 2nd Avenue West to make our way back up to 10th Street. And again, we make our turns on the 10th Street, and we're through the detour, and see, it didn't take any time at all to get through there. Just kidding. Anyways, so the remedial measures, we have to do some stop control, we have to do some lane reassignments at multiple intersections, we have to remove some on-street parking, and we have turn restrictions at key intersections, specifically on 2nd Avenue West and 9th Street. And again, we have to possibly require some upgrades to single heads. We don't imagine we have to do this, but you know, we'll see how everything goes with what we have currently in place. The big thing is, this is kind of a living detour. We're going to make sure, we're going to monitor, see how it's going. If there's any changes we can make, we're going to, you know, always open to the public. My name's everywhere. They can contact me directly. They can contact any of the staff within engineering. They can contact our GM Blue Plan, who's our consultant, and we can look at any possible improvements once we start seeing how this works. I mean, I can't promise you it's going to be perfect, because it's not. That just doesn't happen with a construction detour. But again, we think we can get the most traffic flowing downtown. And, you know, like even when you're heading west on 8th Street, you know, a lot of people aren't going to turn back up to 10th. They're going to keep going along 8th Street, and that's how they're going to make their way out of town or across town. And it's a very simple mechanism. Again, we're going to be talking to a lot of the local businesses and indicate the biggest thing that'll throw a wrench in this whole detour route is we have these larger tractor trailers try to make it through town. We're going to tell them, listen, if your business is on the east side, come, by all means, come in the way you've always come in. But if you're going to the west side of town, please use a bypass to get to the west side. And they'll figure it out themselves, because if they don't, they'll understand after the first time when they try and make a delivery, say Tim Hortons on one of the Tim Hortons on the east side, and try and make it to the west side. I mean, they're not going to stay on schedule. Their schedule is going to be so off, it's going to be unbelievable, and they'll quickly learn. And again, we imagine a lot of our residents will understand what the best route is for them to get downtown. And you know, this week we'll probably have a short-term exercise there for a couple of weeks when we close the intersection of 2nd and 10th, and see how people try and maneuver through town. Again, it's going to be 14 months. We're going to do a lot of promotion, a lot of communication regarding this detour, because we still want people to understand businesses are open downtown, and we'll always be open for business. We want to encourage people to keep coming downtown. Maybe they adjust their schedules. Maybe some businesses have their employees come in a little earlier, leave a little earlier, come in a little later, leave a little later. But again, when you're downtown and you're thinking to miss the traffic, why not stay downtown, enjoy a restaurant, go to the cafe, do a bit of shopping, get some chores out of the way, then go home. And I think that's the best option. Let's work with what we have. And again, we're all about our businesses downtown. We want to make sure they're successful. We want to do what we can to help promote them as well during this time of construction. Some of the things that we're looking at too is we realize that we do have to remove some parking on some key locations. So overall, there's about 840 parking stalls downtown. That's with on the streets and in the parking. Our previous surveys have indicated about 35% of the parking stalls on the street are used or occupied at any given time, and about 30% of the parking lots. So that leaves approximately 320 stalls available in the parking lots, 156 stalls on the street at any given time. So here's a map of where we're looking at removing some of the parking. In the yellows where we're removing parking, and you can see that we've actually removed some parking on 3rd Avenue West as well. We want to maintain a safe route because we know people will be taking it. We're not promoting it as a detour, but we know people will be using it, and with snow removal in the wintertime, we want to make sure it's safe to move over 2 ways of traffic. And you can see right now when you're coming down, I'm currently using that road. If you're using that to get to and from downtown, you'll see if there's anybody parked on the side of the road, it becomes a bit of a maneuvering exercise trying to get, with oncoming traffic. So we want to eliminate that during the time of the construction of the bridge to try and make it safer. And we know in the wintertime that road will be choked down a little bit, so we want to make sure it's safe at all times. So westbound, really, we're looking at removing about 52 stalls, but we're adding 21 stalls on 10th Street because there is the option to do that because we don't need 4 lanes of traffic along 10th between 3rd and 2nd. So Avenues East, so we're looking to add some stalls there. So it's about a net loss of 31 stalls there. Eastbound, we're looking at about removing 31 parking stalls. Again, additional restrictions, removing 30 parking stalls on 3rd Avenue West. A few on 9th Street West and a few on 8th Street West too. And then, like I said, for 3rd Avenue West, it's really to help serve better winter control as well as maintaining safe two-way traffic. So the 10th Street Bridge detour will increase the number of stalls by 64 within the downtown area. This is an overall reduction of about 8% in the total number of parking stalls. So at any given time, what we used to have was about approximately 376 parking stalls. Now that will reduce to 312 during the detour. We are looking at possible options right now. We've had a couple of calls from some of the couple of local businesses wondering about parking. There are possible options, but again, if we come up with anything, we'll definitely bring it back through operations or directly to council to say, hey, there's an option to find some additional parking within the private sector to help offset some of what we lost. But again, that's something before any decisions are made, we'll definitely run by through council. And again, we're looking at ideas. We're always open to ideas. We want to work as a team with our residents, with our businesses downtown to lessen the impact. There is going to be impact, but we want to reduce as much as we can. Essentially, that's it.
So questions? Go ahead, Carol.
Through your worship, I know you've been talking about traffic and parking. I'm wondering if you can indicate, will there be anything required from the pedestrian point of view, especially for those with physical challenges, visual challenges, if you've needed to make any changes or included that in your plan?
What we're doing now is, thank you through your worship, is we know that there is a couple of crosswalks, especially when it comes to for students making their way to school. We're looking at adding additional crossing guards. When it comes to 10th Street itself, we'll make sure it's properly barricaded. And as well, as Sean set up a little while ago, was we actually have that phone-in number where people can phone in and tell us what streets are closed. Again, we'll always keep that up to date. We do it every Monday. We'll make sure that's, again, reiterated, a lot of media coverage, media, I'm trying to think of the word, drawing a blank, but every year, every week, we'll make some sort of a media release to allow us if there's any changes. And again, if some of our residents notice anything that can help us out, we'll definitely make sure that we try and incorporate where we can, where it's possible. But again, most of the detours will be clearly indicated, and again, we're going to make sure that the traffic lights will include the crossings as usual. Again, the timings will be checked. They'll be provided, the contractor will provide all the timers for every intersection that's being affected by the detour, and they'll be required to maintain for the duration of the construction project. Hopefully that helps. Yeah.
Thank you.
Others?
Thanks, Dennis. I just want to congratulate you and your staff on the process. Like, I think this was well done. You've been to every committee meeting. You got comments from all the committees. You took those comments, you made adjustments. The only downside is this is the fourth time I've seen this presentation, but that's okay. Finally, is this map going to be on, it'll be on the city website?
Absolutely.
So people will be able to.
And
I think
again,
that's
if they can
really-
contact me, I can walk them through if they have any questions. Again, we're just starting. We're just starting to work on the communication plan. Downtown River Precinct helped us immensely as a team to say things we tried. You know, we've got a great staff here. Communication department's great to work with. They come up with great ideas, and we'll be looking at continuing with the videos as well. Maybe not as frequent as we're doing now, because this project is going to be stretched out, and there's going to be key milestones that we can help advertise. But communication is going to be very important, and we're committed as a team to ensure that we have a robust communication plan.
Thank you.
Councillor Gregg?
Thanks, everybody. And thanks, Dennis, for the presentation. I should just add one component that wasn't touched on yet, is the ability for people to cycle to work in the community and to lessen their impact and the amount of vehicles on the road. I hope that it's something that we can look at through our HR department, even maybe as some kind of an employee wellness plan or something to incorporate into what we look at next year, and lead by example on it. But I have to say, any days there's been 10th Street work going on, water work. When I bike to work, which is most days, I have not yet been held up in a traffic delay. So it makes a world of difference. It's a bit more planning in someone's day, but hopefully we can have a lot of uptake in our community on using this as an opportunity to incorporate more cycling into their daily habit.
Biking and busing. Busing and biking. Biking and busing. Be communications around both of those, I'm sure, going forward. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You're also the next one on our list at 9C with regard to an update from about the Downtown River Precinct. So why don't you stay where you are? And
Thank you. Yes, Downtown River Precinct has been going along pretty smoothly. You can see quite a bit of work has taken place, especially in close proximity to Pavilion. We've got the initial slab down. They formed up the next slab, the T, the top of the T. Most of the hard surfacing or the curb has been done. We are experiencing a bit of a delay right now because the subcontractor that's responsible for putting the remaining curb in and the flat works, the sidewalks and stuff is going to be delayed 5 days, essentially a week. Right now, I just want to get that out there to make sure we have been working well with the contractor and overall the prime contractor. I just don't want people, when they see not a lot happening this week when it comes to that, that's why it's happening. We're hoping, we're going to work with them. We have a construction meeting set up this week to really emphasize that we still have to finish this project on time and see where they can make up that time of the last 5 days. And you'll find that this happens, it's a regular occurrence. You leave a subcontractor, leave town, and it's hard getting them back sometimes because if they've committed somewhere else and run into delays there, they can't leave there and get back here. But at least they said they're going to be here towards the end of the week. And if worse comes to worse, we may have to work some Saturdays to try and make this time up, but that's something we'll start discussing this Thursday. But other than that, a lot of the work is, all the underground work's been done, and a lot of the hard surface has been done. Now they're filling up the areas. Work's going to start taking place sometime this week on the pavilion. They've got the second slab to pour. Materials should be arriving on site. And our subcontractor who's doing the hard work should be here. The curb and the remaining sidewalk should be here towards the end of the week. So fingers crossed, I think we can still make up the time. We've got about 6-7 weeks left in the schedule, but we'll definitely find out how they plan on making up this time this coming week.
I noticed there's a crew working out there till at least 6:45 tonight. I think you just said it. So when do you expect to be done? Or what's the goal?
Still the goal is August 31st.
Okay, so
After that, there'll be a couple of minor things, some street furnishing, some plantings to be done, but the pavilion, all the hard surfacing should be done by August 31st. That's substantial completion. So when you talk about substantial completion, you're looking at 99% of the work to be completed.
good, thank you. Other questions? Seeing none, thank you for both those reports. At number 10 on our agenda is public question period. If there's any member of the public that has a question, now is the perfect time. I'll get you to push the, it's probably going to be a purple button. There we go.
I think I got it.
Yeah.
Good.
Get you state your name.
Thank you. I'm Louise Jarvis, and I live in Owen Sound.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Boddy, Deputy Mayor, and honorable councillors. The locally produced climate change film, Resilience, Transforming Our Community, premiered on May 8th to a standing room only crowd at the Roxy Theatre. Since then, over 20 community screenings have been booked, both locally and across Canada. The movie Resilience explains the science of climate change, demonstrates local impacts, and then offers local solutions. After each screening, there's a facilitated community conversation, generating ideas for climate action, which are then shared with local groups to begin developing plans. Wyerton, Thornbury, Flesherton, and Lions Head have all done this. Owen Sound now has an active climate action team which meets regularly at the Harmony Centre. This film, Resilience, is available to watch for free from the website resiliencedoc.info, or you can find it just by Googling Resilience Owen Sound, and it'll take you right to that website. My question is, have you watched the film Resilience? And if not, when will you do that? Please answer individually.
I'm not going to do that. We did that last time where we answered individually. As a council, when we have notices of motion, we'll give notice a month out or a week out so that we have time to think about it. So we don't answer individually ourselves for our own questions, and this is the second meeting that somebody's walked in and asked us a question that we're not really prepared for. I think at the end of the day, you want us to get to a point. You wanted us to get to a point where we're doing more and doing better for our climate, correct?
Oh, definitely.
Definitely.
Yes.
We want to get there too. We're doing a lot of things now. We've started some things. We've got some things we want to do in the future. I really encourage you to set up and do a deputation, legal terms, at our operations committee so that we can have a good discussion, be prepared. You can hear some of the things that the city is doing already and then might have some suggestions of how we can move forward. I think that's a more fair way to go, and it gets you where you want us to go and it gets us to where we want to go. So I think it's a better way to do it. So instead of putting that question, we hear you, but there's a better way to do this, and that's one of the ways. Just to be clear, we have 3 advisory committees. We'd have more when you get into economic development and accessibility. Several different committees that we have a lot of public members on. This is a way for us to be able to hear from the community, members of the community, and the best place that we tend to have our best discussions. Those committee reports come to council. Richard Scott, I don't recall us overturning the committee decision in the last term. Certainly we haven't this year. So the committees tend to be where the best discussion happens. and where the best policies come forward, and we approve them 99% of the time, if not more. So that's what I really encourage you to do.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in. At number 11, correspondence received, which, oh, there's more? Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
just a quick question about the, and I'm not sure if I should address it to you or council.
Go ahead and ask, and we'll find out.
Okay. In the
Sorry, habits, rules. Okay, to state who you are and where you live, just for the
Okay,
record.
I'm Sue Seguin, and we're residents of Owen Sound. And the question concerns bicycle traffic during the closure and whether or not bicycles will be, A, temporarily permitted to use safely the sidewalks if necessary, and B, if they will be allowed to ride against the one-way traffic like they do in Toronto. So it's kind of a two-sided question.
Dennis, you're the best one to answer.
Thank you for the question. Through your worship, I mean, we'll touch base with Owen Sound Police Services to determine if there's something we can do about riding on the sidewalks. And I'm not sure where the one-way traffic is that you're talking about, but usually we expect them to, I mean, the only one-way traffic that we'll have will be on the street just adjacent to us that we're currently redoing. Again, that's something we'd have to, I wouldn't encourage going against traffic just because it's not safe and there's options to go with the flow of traffic. But we'll definitely touch base with our police services, see if there's something that can be done regarding the sidewalks. And again, it's a very tough question because when you develop certain communities and if you're looking for having joint use of sidewalks and pathways, you'll see like multi-use pathways, the minimum width should be 3 meters if you're expecting both cyclists and pedestrians to use it. And it's kind of hard given our sidewalks in many cases are only 1.5 meters wide, but there are some locations where they are possibly 3 meters, but that's something we can look into. And again, we'd have to touch base with police services.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I don't know that we put enough thought into bicycling with this coming and identifying where some of our bicycling lanes are. So it's something that we will be wanting to work on going forward.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other questions from the public tonight? Just so I don't keep going. Thank you. So now at number 11, we have no correspondence for the consideration of council. Number 12A is a report from Mr. Aston with regard to plan of subdivision. I'll get you to push the little purple button there.
There it's on. Thank you. Just a comment. Your comment about ugly shirt night, I understood it was crazy shirt night, so I'm not really sure where I stand anymore.
Well, we'll maybe add an extra prize for you.
So this evening, I'm here to present on the Ann Pet subdivision, and there's 3 applications that, as part of the report, are here for recommendation for approval: draft plan of subdivision, an official plan amendment, and zoning bylaw amendment. The application, this is the lands that relates to. The application, we've been working with Ann Pet subdivision landowner, Mr. Van Dolder, and consultant, Ms. Spencer, through the process over the last number of months. The application was deemed complete in March 2019. So there was submissions before that, but it was deemed complete at that time after the city had received all the information that was requested as part of the pre-consultation process. So from March 2019 to this evening, we've been working through the technical report process, the public meeting process, and the conditions and draft bylaw. And here this evening with that full package as a recommendation for approval. So this is the draft plan of subdivision. Essentially, you can see 14th Street east coming through the site, and then there's a public road, Street A, on the lands, and then a stormwater management block to the left. And then the remaining portions of the plan are blocks that contain really a mix of apartment dwelling type units, retirement long-term care facility on block 7, and then other blocks 1 to 4, really for a mix of different townhouse type of units, street fronting townhouses, and then cluster townhouses, which are understood to be geared toward more of a seniors market, bungalow-style units. So what's being proposed is a real mix, and this is from the applicant, really the vision, a real mix of unit types on the site to really provide for a full range of housing choices within this area. Just in behind the stormwater management pond is an open space block, which will provide a trail connection through the site as well. This next plan gives a little better detail, some idea of how the units will fit within those blocks. What happens with a plan of subdivision and blocks on a plan of subdivision is that each of those blocks will be subject to a future site plan approval. So details associated with parking and lighting and landscaping will all be sorted through as part of future site plan applications. What's being approved tonight is putting really the planning framework in place for the uses that are proposed, and the structure for the plan of subdivision being the public roads and the stormwater management facility. The current official plan identifies these lands as residential, low-density residential, and then there's an open space block, which you can see there, relating to the stormwater management pond and what's proposed as the trail connection through the property. You'll see the public road pattern there, and that is what's in the official plan now, and then what's proposed is a similar nature where the 14th Street is still coming through. Instead of crescent, there's a cul-de-sac proposed as a public street, but that dashed line would be a private street that's being proposed and associated with the townhouses. So we've made sure through the design and through conditions that there continues to be 2 points of access for the townhouses where that private road is, and that's again a detail that we would work through as part of the site plan, but we've made sure that that access for secondary purposes and emergency access remains available through the site. The official plan also contains the the planning area for Sydenham Heights, and within this area, it really breaks down the land uses from just the residential and the official plan to more detailed low density, medium density, and high density. So what's being proposed here is to increase the densities on the lands, and also to provide for both medium and high density designations. So you'll see in the orange is the darker orange is the high density, and the lighter orange is the medium densities, and that's where the townhouses are proposed, and in the higher density, that's where the apartment and the retirement home and lifestyle, adult lifestyle housing is proposed. The density increase that's being requested is to 124 units per hectare. Currently, the official plan in the Sydenham Heights area permits 100 units per hectare. So that's the official plan amendment that is recommended for approval this evening. The current zoning is R4, and that R4 permits single detached units. So what's proposed with the application is really to change the R4 to permit the range of units that's being proposed and other special provisions related to the design. So the zoning is broken up into essentially blocks that relate to the proposed uses, and there's an R5 block, R4 block, open space block, and each of those blocks relate to the proposed uses in residential types that are part of the proposed development. There's additional special provisions in the zoning that relate to setbacks, and those are associated with the proposed townhouses adjacent to the existing residential. So if you recall public comments, there was a concern with the original design and the permissions for setback to the existing residential. So the site-specific provision is written into the bylaw requiring further setback than what would be identified in the zoning bylaw for the townhouse units that back onto existing residential. So that would be, doesn't show up there. You can see the existing residential, those units that back on. As part of the review, the application was circulated internally, circulated also to the county and the Conservation Authority, and in general was confirmed and concluded that services are available, there's capacity available for the site. The stormwater management pond block was assessed, and the design of that stormwater management pond was supported by city staff, so that element of the plan is supported. Details associated with that design will be a requirement of further engineering design. As far as public comments, we wanted just to summarize what was heard through the process. There's a question on stormwater management. As I just mentioned, that analysis was completed and was supported by the city. Conservation Authority had no concerns. There is a condition requiring review of the detailed design by both the Conservation Authority and the city. There is a question about increased density and the impact on services. And again, that was reviewed and confirmed that the proposed development would not have impact on existing services. There is available capacity within water, sanitary servicing, stormwater management. Proposed trail connection and pedestrian circulation. The proposed trail is provided off the road around the stormwater management pond, and then the proposed street connection of 14th Street provides sidewalks, and then there'll be internal sidewalks to the lands as well that would occur through site plan approval. And as I mentioned, there's consideration to ensure safe emergency access through the plan. There's a question about accessible housing and housing to serve a wider demographic range. I think this is a plan that really represents that as an opportunity with the mix of housing types that's being proposed in the area. The question of the setbacks to the existing residential rear yards. The original plan was proposing 3 meters. The proposed zoning bylaw now is requiring an increased side yard setback of 7.57 meters. So we've worked with the applicant to ensure we've addressed that very specific comment, and the plan was revised to ensure that the blocks are designed appropriately to accommodate that design. There's a question of snow storage. Again, that was something that was reviewed, and further details as the details of the road design come forward, and site plans will assist in addressing snow removal. So as far as next steps, there's the recommendation before you this evening to approve the official plan amendment, the zoning bylaw amendment, and the plan of subdivision. Should that be approved, then appropriate notices will be sent out from clerks. There's appeal periods associated with those, and the applicant will then have 3 years to fulfill the conditions, so complete all the detailed designs. Final subdivision approval or registration of the plan would occur, and then as each block goes to develop, there'll be further details addressed through site plan approval. So this is just a very small printed slide, but it's essentially the recommendation that you have before you this evening.
Good, thank you. Councillor Kepke.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to move the recommendation, and I just wanted to mention that I'm really pleased to see the mix in the housing developments, particularly the townhouses. This is something that people have been asking for around town, so congratulations on that mix.
Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation, Dave. I'm just wondering if, like you have to deal with other municipalities, yeah, you've been doing this for a while. Where do we stand in terms of time and process in Owen Sound when we're doing a project this big?
Yeah, I think as far as the time and the process, each municipality has essentially a set process. The Planning Act requires pre-application, then that pre-application identifies studies and requirements for a complete application, and then from the complete application you have your standard process of public meeting and then moving forward to a recommendation. To get to the complete application really is a combination of an applicant, say, working with the city to ensure all that information is there. So that takes some time, and that ranges. But from the date of completion to a recommendation, we're essentially for 4 months from complete application, approximately 120 days. For a plan of subdivision, that actually meets the new Planning Act standard and well out in front of the standard of 210 days for an official plan amendment. So based on, I've worked in various municipalities and I won't name them, but it's been from a year from the point of complete application to 10 years from the point of complete application. So I think a combination of working with staff, having a landowner and consultant willing to sit down and solve problems, it's a pretty accelerated timeline.
Okay, thanks. And Peter Van Doler is here, so I wanted to mention while he's here that, Peter, you're a big player in this city and you've done an awful lot for development, and you have a lot to do with our growth, and this is a really big project, and just want to thank you for everything you do for Owen Sound. Thanks.
I just had one question, David. You referred to a dotted line that was going to be a private road, so just for clarity, that would potentially be a common element of a condominium road?
You're correct, yes.
So that we have Lamson Crescent in Owen Sound that would be similar, that's a private or a condominium road, and it would just be similar to that. I just wanted to clarify that. Good, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, I will call the question. Councillor Kepke has moved the recommendation. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. If we can maybe jump to 12C instead of 12B, I think Mr. Aston's going to present the technical report for Heritage Grove, if I'm not mistaken. If you want to do that, and then that allows you to escape maybe a little earlier. Before we give out the prizes for the craziest shirt. Get you to push that little purple button again, and then we're good.
Great, thank you. I guess it's like those 50-50 prizes where you can't win if you're not there, so I'll leave and I can't win. Thank you. So I just want to speak to the technical report with regard to the application submitted for the Heritage Grove property. And there's a plan, the proposed site plan that I'll speak to. I think it will provide good information as far as what is being proposed. So if I could get that put up on screen when you're ready. So the technical report is just providing direction to prepare for the public meeting, and the public meeting's been scheduled for August 12th, 2019. And then following that public meeting, staff would bring a recommendation report to council. So this evening is just really to present the application. No decisions made this evening, and the process is really just beginning here. So the subject property, as many of you are aware, it's a large site. There's portions of the site that have been built out with larger box stores, access to Highway 26. And what's being proposed is additional access as a right-in, right-out. The application itself is proposing a hotel, 6 restaurants, and a gas station. I'll get into a little more detail on that in a little bit. The lands are designated East City Commercial, and they're zoned with commercial with a site-specific provision, and that's provision 1489. And that site-specific provision contains a number of details associated with the development and build-out of the site, and it's specifically based on previous applications, previous market studies, so a lot of information has been built into the site-specific provision associated with those lands. So here, what's being proposed is it doesn't show up very well on the screen. To the right, you can see, is the proposed hotel. And then center to the site at the full movement access coming into the site is the gas bar. And then the restaurants are kind of along the main spine coming central to the site. Does that make sense, or you want me to go?
Yeah, no,
Okay, that's good.
I think we're all
Okay.
following that.
And as far as the restaurants, what's happening is there's 4, I'm going to call them larger restaurants, and then 2 smaller restaurants. And when I speak to larger restaurants, it's because right now in the zoning bylaw, there's permission for a certain number of larger restaurants, and then a certain number of small restaurants to a total cap of restaurant size. And that came about through previous discussions with the applicant and previous market study associated with the relationship of restaurants within this development and with other restaurants within the city and primarily within the downtown. So this application is proposing a tweak to those special regulations associated with restaurant uses. On the subject lands with the site-specific provision, a gas bar and hotel are not currently permitted. Again, in other areas within the city, the commercial zoning, general commercial zoning would permit those uses. So something specific through previous process that these uses were not permitted, and they're being requested to be added to the site. So as part of the applications, a number of technical reports were provided, planning report, proposed building elevations were provided, servicing report, an update to the traffic report was provided, and a market impact study was provided as well. The reports are under review from city staff, and those have been circulated as well. And the market study is being kind of peer-reviewed by our firm and Tate Economic Research, who are experts in retail impact studies. So notice of complete application of this was in May 2019, and then it was circulated in June. So as part of the review process, This will be reviewed in context of provincial policy, the county's official plan, and the city official plan as it relates to the retail impact study requirements, the general land use requirements, and the urban design requirements. And those urban design requirements will also help to inform future site plan applications that would be associated with the lands. The hotel component of the site is also requesting an increase in height to the zoning bylaw. So it's proposing to increase the height to 19 meters, whereas 10 meters is proposed. So it's proposing to a 6-story hotel, and that's the 19 meters. And the restaurants, they're part of a service uses, so there's two things happening with restaurants. There's a proposed total increase to service uses, which include restaurants on the site, a minor increase, but it's bumping up that site-specific provision from 2,578 square meters to 2,593 square meters. And then the restaurants, what happens is, as I mentioned, a minimum unit size of 325 square meters, and there are smaller restaurants permitted as long as they don't exceed a total of 464 square meters. And so the total square footage of the smaller restaurants is going above that 464 square meters, or it's about 5,000 square feet. So in general, that's the application that's been submitted. All of the supporting material is available on the city's website, and the application's been circulated. Comments will be received from the city and agencies. There'll be follow-up with the applicant as it relates to the comments that are received, and any discussions or changes associated with those comments would be addressed as part of a future report.
Good, thank you very much. Questions? Go ahead.
With respect to the hotel, it identifies on the mapping 4 stories, 75 rooms. 6 stories, how many rooms? And my other part of the question is, are there any concerns from fire on the 6 stories?
Through your worship, the 19 meters is kind of what they're proposing as the height. The site plan says 4 stories. All of their information says 75 rooms. We don't have anything that suggests something different. And as far as the review from the fire department, the fire department circulated as part of their review process, and so they'll review that, and that will form part of the comments.
So future. Okay, someone want to? Scott, go ahead.
I guess I have to ask the question, and I wish to be one of the last people to tell a developer how to develop their property, but the thinking, you have to put the thinking cap on for a second. And several years ago, even one restaurant up there in that area, Quiznos, went out of business, and maybe it was the food, maybe I didn't eat there enough, I'm not sure. But when this zoning proposal's in front of us and it says 6 restaurants, it really makes me wonder if that doesn't come to fruition, because we don't have the population. Like, restaurants are dependent upon disposable income and the amount of people, and we've got 21,000 in Owen Sound and a serviceable area. But if that doesn't come to fruition, where does the developer, the applicant, go in terms of amending this or changing it? Because that, you have to admit, that would strike you as a lot of restaurant for Owen Sound.
Through your worship, again, what's being proposed is increasing the overall service use permitted cap, and then increasing the additional permission for the smaller restaurants. So some restaurants are permitted. And then the additional space, again, the applicants completed their market study and submitted it as part of the application, and that's something that we're working with Tate Economic Research to assess, and certainly something that would be part of the future staff report as far as a response associated with that peer review.
So we're a little premature in some of our questions at this point in the process.
Yes, we're just getting started with into that element of the analysis.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas.
I would move the recommendations, Your Worship.
Thank you. Other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So Council, if we can go back to 12B then in our agenda, which is manager purchasing risk with regard to award for 10th Street Bridge replacement. I think, Mr. Kafalis, you carrying that, or you're passing the torch?
No, just kidding. Through your worship, staff is seeking the City Council to award the contract for the replacement of 10th Street Bridge to Luby Builders in the amount of $8,680,689.79. The city did receive 7 bids, which was double the amount of contractors than what we expected. The winning bid came in higher than what was estimated or held in this year's budget. The city is receiving $3 million in connecting these funding that has to be spent by a specific date, March 31st, 2021. The deficit based on the winning bid, or the shortfall, I should say, based on the winning bid is approximately $1.4 million. The plan is to review the 2020 capital project plan to see to find the funds through the offset from the existing projects, to see if we can offset it by reducing the scope of work we plan for 2020 and use that funding to help cover the shortfall in this budget. Tonight, we're just looking to seeking council's approval to award the contract, but we'll be planning to hold a special meeting sometime next week to pass the bylaw. It's always disappointing when our estimates are not bang on, but it's extremely hard when we talk about projects of this nature. We don't do enough of them, and no two bridges are alike. We try and take historical data from bridges that we've done in town, what our consultant has done throughout the province. And again, it's a bit of a crapshoot when it comes to projects like this. We do know that if we throw out the high and the low, we had 5 bids within $1 million of each other, so we know that the price that's been submitted, our winning price, is what it costs to replace that bridge. That some of the people had to sharpen their pencils. I'm sure they were aware of who was bidding on it, so we do believe we got a fair price for this bridge. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Good. Thank you. Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Thanks, Dennis. Just to your point, I just wanted to comment on that because I know when we went through the Downtown River Precinct, the wrong message comes out. The message comes out that we're over budget by $300 and some thousand before we've even started. And to me, it's not the case. Whether it's our staff or a consultant or GM Blue Plan that tries to put a number together, that is not set in stone our budget. If you come up with a number of 9.5 million for this bridge, everyone that quotes on it sees that 9.5 million, guaranteed it's going to come in at 10 million or 10.5. So you're in a no-win situation. The number has to be less than what the actual is, because if it's too high, then it'll just be worse. So I just wanted to make that point, because this does not mean, the way I look at it, that we're $1.5 million over budget before we even get started. We now have a number. That's the actual number. That's the number we're working with. Let's get on with it. And with that, I'll move the recommendation.
Good. Thank you. Other comments? Councillor Gregg?
Thanks, Mayor. I just wonder if through the mayor, you could just speak to the company that we're looking at awarding the contract to. I'm aware they did the bridge replacement in Chesley, but in terms of meeting, and Deputy Mayor O'Leary spoke to the money side of things, but there's a lot of people in the community equally or more concerned with the ability of the builder to get this done on time, obviously on budget, but you know, they're looking at the timelines, and we're trying to calm the public and make sure they feel that we can get this done in the time frame that we've established.
Thank you, through your worship. We had some very strong companies bid on this project, including the potentially successful bidder. We're very confident they have a good track record of completing these projects within the budgets and usually on the schedule that they indicate as part of their contract proposal. But you know, the thing is, and they also have a good reputation of being able to work with them. They work well with their owners and the consultants and the residential engineers. So we feel that this project will, you know, you anticipate there's always going to be some roadblocks that you have to get through, but we believe that this is a very strong company, very strong bid. We'll know better once we sit down and have our pre-construction meeting and they submit their schedule to what the actual schedule will be. Like the one that we're proposing is what we believe the schedule is, and we believe it's fair, but we still have to sit down with them to see if we're bang on together, if we both see it the same way. So that'll be coming as part of our information packages back to council to let you know what the proposed schedule, if there's any changes to what we expect, but we'll get out in front of it to let people know right away.
Okay, any other questions? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? That is carried. So we're down to 11D, which is drinking water quality management. Mr. Prentice.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I could have the PowerPoint started, please. Okay.
12D.
So I'm cognizant of the fact, mercifully, that Council's been going since 4 o'clock, so I'll make this short and sweet and hopefully straightforward. The purpose of this presentation is to provide Council with information and support of Garner Council's commitment and endorsement of the city's drinking water system operational plan. That commitment and endorsement is an important and necessary part of meeting the Ontario Drinking Water Standard. The original commitment endorsement was 2009, when the first operational plan was prepared in accordance with provincial regulations. With new councils in 2011 and 2015, that commitment endorsement was renewed. And so many of you here have been through this process before. So as part of the background, as a requirement for the city to have and maintain a drinking water license, we have to have a number of documents in place. We need a drinking water works permit, valid permit to take water, a financial plan, which is being revised within the coming year, an updated raw water assessment, and what we're talking about tonight is the approved operational plan, which is a living document, which is continually updated, but must be committed and endorsed by new councils. What is a quality management system? Examples include ISO 9001 and ISO 14001. As one of the recommendations coming out of the Walkerton inquiry, the province developed the DWQMS, Drinking Water Quality Management Standard, which has 21 elements which are heavily prescribed. Essentially, all operational plans look very much the same for municipal water systems. This operational plan is our root document. It does reflect the aspects of our system, but it is heavily prescribed. And all these 21 elements, which I'll go through very quickly, are set out as well in the standard. So the quality management system definition is element 1. It starts with the operational plan as the root document. There's other documents called the system level documents, standard operating procedures and emergency response plans, and then records and forms. All of that paper, as it were, forms the core of our operational plan. The quality management system policy, again, this is prescribed by the province, so most QMS policies for drinking water in the province of Ontario do look like this and speak to quality, sustainability, and continual improvement. This standard, or rather this policy, has been in place more or less unchanged except for the logo since 2009. Element 3 is commitment and endorsement, the reason we're here tonight. Essentially, once this presentation is complete, you'll look at a recommendation authorizing the mayor and city staff to commit and endorse to the operational plan. QMS representative, that is me. Public Works Manager is the QMS representative. I'm responsible for implementation upkeep of the operational plan, ensuring annual activities and training occur, including SOP review, ERP review, risk assessment review, training plans, the annual internal audit, external audit, management review, corrective actions, documenting of the QMS, then reporting to upper management council at a partridge in a pear tree. There's a few things there. Element 5 is documents and records. Important distinction is that a document is a living thing that can be created, modified, changed based on anyone's input, really, and following set processes. Records, if you change them, you go to jail. We found that out in Walkerton, and that's the important distinction. But the way that we run our document control and where we keep our records is defined clearly in our operational plan. Element 6, drinking water system. Now that you have a copy of the operational plan, if you wanted to look at and get a Coles Note summary of the drinking water system, there is an excellent summary in there with a couple of diagrams. Its purpose is to provide a high-level overview of the system. Elements 7 and 8, risk assessment procedures and outcomes. Annually, the operators are required to review the complete risk assessment of the water system. Risks are identified, ranked based on likelihood and severity, and we have to plan mitigating measures such as standard operating procedures and emergency response plans. Critical control points are identified for special attention, and currently at this point we have 106 identified risks or hazards, 4 critical control points, 116 standard operating procedures, and 13 emergency response plans as part of our documentation system. Not all of that is attached in the minutes, obviously. The organizational structure, responsibilities, and authorities sets out who is who in the water system. So the owner is obviously the City of Owen Sound Council. Top management is defined. The QMS representative and myself represents the top of the operating authority, and the people that report to me are indicated there as well. Competencies defines competencies as related to water for the various staff positions, outlines how competencies are satisfied, and how training is recorded and planned. Element 11, there was a typo. Personal courage was what the slide was called at first. While we do need a lot of that, it's actually personnel coverage. This is the procedures and policy to ensure staff are available at all times to deal with water treatment or water distribution emergencies and issues. It outlines staffing and on-call strategy, and as those of you that have seen the water plant, wastewater plant know, we have a SCADA system which calls it alarms, and we have remote control of the SCADA systems for the plants under good security control so that no one can hack us. Thank you, Sean. Element 12, communications, sets out how existing and new staff are trained, sets out how DWQMS is communicated to top management and the owner, and how this information is communicated to the public, suppliers, and regulatory agencies. Element 13, essential supplies and services. We have an emergency response plan, which is included in the package in the agenda, and that includes the emergency contact list. We keep that in that location and only in that location, so there's one place for the phone numbers. Elements 14 and 15 lay out essentially capital planning relating functions related to the quality management system, make reference to the financial plan and 5-year capital plan, and outlines our annual maintenance programs as well. Elements 16 and 17, this element is where we trespass most upon the domain of the Ministry of Environment, the regulator, in a sense that the water quality monitoring instruments are subject to some significant regulatory requirements. If an auditor were to see something in this area that's out of whack, they would have to advise us, they have to contact the ministry, and then we'd be facing an investigation. That has never happened to us, I might add, but this is an important element. Element 18, emergency preparedness and response. SOPs are meant for routine situations. Emergency response plans are developed to address situations which have the potential for adverse health and safety impacts on the public, or which simply are beyond our capacity to address internally. Element 19, internal audits. Every year we have to have an internal audit done of the quality management system. Actions required come out of that could include opportunities for improvement, minor nonconformances, or major nonconformances. Element 20, management review. Every year in January, we assess the performance of DWQMS. There's a specific management review report which is prepared. The city manager, the director, the manager, myself, and the water treatment and water distribution supervisors attend that. And then that report actually goes through the committee to council. Element 21, continuous improvement. This has actually been upgraded substantially in something called DWQMS 2.0. The ministry made changes to this. Essentially, in a nutshell, the continual improvement process has been beefed up with an emphasis on improvements that are not simply in response to something that's wrong, but to proactively follow best management practices. In a nutshell, that's basically what they did to this element. Are there any questions on this report or the presentation?
Thanks, Matt. Questions? Any? I'm just looking, oh, go ahead, Brock. Go ahead.
I'll just move the recommendation.
Okay. I'm just looking at element 9, organizational structure, responsibilities, and authorities, and right at the top of that is the City of Owen Sound Council. So we're ultimately responsible. That's why we went through that training a month ago. And this is probably a good time as the people that are most responsible for the drinking water in Owen Sound to ask questions if you've got them. Seeing none, that's faith in you.
Thank you. I would add, just as a minor point, or an additional point, we've actually developed a wastewater quality management system as well, and there'll be a commitment endorsement report coming later on in the year. That system is actually very closely modeled on the water operational plan.
Is it required by the province?
No, it's something that was in the capital budget, and we've completed it, and we're going to go through a commitment and endorsement process.
So that's a step moving ahead of what's
Yes.
required to make sure that we're doing things properly and to have a plan. So
Yes.
that's good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, call the question. All in favor? That's carried. Once again, thanks, Matt, to you and everyone that looks after the system along the way. We do have lots of trust in you. You're coming to operations all the time that maybe the public doesn't see, and presenting monthly, if not quarterly reports anyway, in water quality and wastewater and all those important things that allows us to do our jobs, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Number 12E, report from Chief Barfoot with regard to supplying fire prevention assistance to Intertownship Fire Department.
Thank you, Worship. I'm here tonight just to explain, at this time, the Intertownship Fire Department is in need of help to provide fire prevention services inside Georgian Bluffs. Our prevention department at this time is capable of helping the Intertownship provide the service, and what we are looking at is 1 day a week for one member of our fire prevention team. The day in question will be mutually worked upon between the Intertownship chief and myself, and right now we're looking at every Tuesday. So currently the Owen Sound prevention staff, they will use a Intertownship Fire Department vehicle for any transportation needs, so there will be no cost to an Owen Sound taxpayer for that. The Owen Sound prevention staff member will help the acting chief and the acting deputy chief in their fire prevention duties for the township of Georgian Bluffs. Right now, our staff have the time to do that, and I failed to put on here, but what we have come up with right now is to provide this service till the end of the year. So we plan on working through this and see where it ends up.
Good. Thank you. Questions? Councillor Gregg.
I don't have any questions that haven't been answered by the chief in the past, and I would just note that Corporate Services Chair Dodd's not here tonight, and as fire is within his committee, I would move the recommendation here noting he's not here, and I'm sure he'd be happy to, but I think back to the fires, the arson fires a few years ago, where we needed tremendous assistance from many of the neighboring fire departments, not just George and Bluffs, but I think Chatsworth and Saugeen Shores, so I'm happy that we're able to assist where it's needed.
And you're moving it then?
I'd move it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Carol.
Through your worship, I support the shared services. I think it's a positive move forward. But when we share a service, there's usually a win-win. And I'm wondering if you'd mind just discussing a little bit more the advantages for our city through this shared service.
Through your worship. Yeah, and again, I'm going to add to what was already stated here. I should highlight again what's going on in Grey County, the mutual aid agreement we have. And I believe it has grown in leaps and bounds in the last few years. And what it all boils down to is working with our neighbors. And right now, one phone call and we will have Intertownship here, we will have Chatsworth here. We actually have a coordinator inside the township. If we have something big like August 10th again, he will get put into action, and what we do right now is actually leapfrog. So if Intertownship came into here to help us, he would bring Markdale to leapfrog Chatsworth to come in to help Intertownship, and Chatsworth would be on call to look after Markdale, and then Fleshton would be on the other side. So there has been a huge movement in mutual aid to work with each other. We honestly believe that no one department can do everything, and we're no different than anybody else. This is just another move for us to help our neighbors, and history has shown we make one phone call to them and they've got 25 guys there within a few minutes. So
Thank you.
if that answers your question,
Yes,
I hope it
does.
does.
Thank you.
Going to go to Mr. Ritchie there for a minute.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Certainly, the chief is correct. We're looking to work closer with our neighbors as they are with us. I think it's important that we always look for those mutual arrangements where it is equally beneficial to all ratepayers. In this particular case, with the quid quo pro we have on some other issues, we feel this is equally beneficial to all ratepayers.
And I understand that in George and Bluffs, they've passed something similar to this.
Yes, they're on board with this, and they, it has been passed by their council, so they understand
of it, yeah.
what we're doing. So.
Okay, other questions? Seeing none, going to call the question. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. It's a good step forward. 12F, Deputy Treasurer, Tax Collector. Mr.
Thank you, Your
Kafelis?
Worship.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Go ahead, Tracy.
This report here tonight is requesting council direction to bring forward a bylaw in order to levy taxes upon Georgian College and Grey Bruce Health Services. This bylaw request is brought to council annually after we receive our capacity numbers from the province. 2019 saw a decrease in 20 heads at the college, resulting in a $1,500 levy decrease. The number of beds stayed the same. So the recommendation is that council direct staff to bring forward a bylaw to levy a tax upon certain institutions.
Good, thank you. Questions? Councillor Kepke?
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay, anything further? No? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 12G, purchasing bleacher replacement at Duncan McClellan Park.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report deals with an RFP 1934, which is the bleachers at Duncan McClellan Park. Duncan is our premier ballpark, and the bleachers there are beyond their useful life. This ballpark hosts several tournaments each year, including national and provincial level tournaments. The goal was to provide accessible and adaptive seating that would enhance the park, and the seating should last certainly the next 25 years. Toward this goal, we had secured $125,000 in sponsorship through Coke. The original RFP was let in 2018, and unfortunately at that time we received no bids. With feedback from the bidding community, we went to a design-build solution, and GM Blue Plan did the design. The proposal was again called in compliance with our purchasing bylaw, and it closed on May 29th with only one bid by Harold Sutherland. We did sit down with the contractor and look at opportunities to modify the scope of work, but those compromised the design around accessibility as well as created worries in terms of drainage as well as warranty work with the bleachers. So the financial section is important. So we're recommending that we use the amount shown in the budget from the Coke sponsorship. Kristen Schreider has several facilities projects that she's brought in under budget, so we would propose to use $25,000 from the existing capital budget, take $28,000 from the Parks Reserve, and $25,000 from that 3% facility booking reserve to fund the project. So the recommendation is that you would award the tender to Harold Sutherland Construction at a price of $202,637, including contingencies. Approve allocating $28,354 from your Parks Reserve and using $25,000 from the Facility Reserve and reallocating within the budget envelope $25,000 from those underspent parks and facilities capital projects.
Councillor Thomas?
I'd like to thank staff for all their hard work on this one. When we had our recent tour of the parks, there were some noticeable improvements at Duncan McClelland, and we've been hearing about these issues for a number of years now, including the bleachers, which I think have needed replacing probably since I started on council in 2014. Not everything comes in exactly as you expect it will, but I think that putting in fully accessible bleachers up there is going to be a big step forward for us. Everything we do now has got to have that level of accessibility. So I would move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Seeing none. Oh, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Body. Well, I'm going to speak from experience because I played a lot of ball at Duncan McClelland, and I used to organize the Desborough ball tournament and bring teams into Desborough. So I'm speaking here from a love of fastball. I grew up playing it, but I have to recognize the current state of the sport. The usage is down. It's nowhere close to what it was. In birth year 74, which is me, I played at the All Ontarios as a junior representing Owen Sound. There's 32 teams in the tournament that year. The next year it was held in Owen Sound. There was 16. That's a reflection of the sport. Whether I like it or not, it just doesn't have the players and the demand anymore. This is a park now. We want it to look good, but there's repair work needed on Duncan South where the fence is exposed in behind the backstop, and it's a danger actually if you're a catcher and you turn and you punch into exposed fence. We could do other things at Duncan Major to make it more playable. There's never been a pitcher's warm-up area on the first base side. There is on the third side. But we could take out bleachers that no longer are usable because the dugouts that were built last year obstruct the view of almost anyone in that bleacher set. So we could add a warm-up area and make the whole area safer with the kind of monies that we're talking about here. When we had the facilities tour that day, I was speaking with a lady who was following council around. Her comments to that in terms of inclusivity and accessibility were that she represents Summerfolk. When it rains at Summerfolk, the wheelchair attendees have no other area to sit in other than pools of water at the base of the amphitheater. So I have to take a real close look at this and acknowledge that even last year at the provincial tournament in Owen Sound, there wasn't enough people attending at once to fill the 300 approximate seats that we're talking about here. It breaks down to $674 per seat. If we want to get into talking about reserves, let's have that conversation as a whole, because I got all kinds of things I'd like to spend $28,000 from the Parks Reserve on. I'd like to plant trees at various parks here in Owen Sound, or initiatives to help that Summerfolk accessibility issue that the lady spoke of. But to to spend $200,000 on 3 grandstands that may never be fully occupied because the sport's in decline when there's other greater needs in Owen Sound, I think is absolutely egregious. I will not support the motion. I'll ask for a recorded vote to demonstrate my position on this matter. We approved a budget $125,000. The scope of this is way above and beyond. It should come back to council to be more closely looked at and revised so that we can get this project back within the approved budget that we did. We already went 1.5% over, 1.5 million over in the bridge tonight. This is 60% over budget. That'd be like taking the $12 million bid on the bridge tonight. So there's no way I can support that, and I do ask for a recorded vote. Thanks.
you. Deputy Mayor O'Leary?
Well, I think what I just heard is that we should probably close the Bay Shore because minor hockey numbers are down. Like if baseball numbers are down or fastball numbers are down, the last thing they need is for our city council to bail on them. So I will support this motion. The reason it's high is because we didn't get anyone to bid in the first place. Like we're a year late on it.
Other discussion? Go ahead.
Through your worship, we've been talking about accessibility, and that's near and dear to my heart. But have we actually approached those who have the accessibility challenge to see if they can provide us input? I mean, I know there's been a group working on it, but they're going to be the prime users. Perhaps there are options that would work for them that may assist us in either saying, yes, this is the best solution for us, or no, have you considered this? Or, you know, the idea of inclusivity is great, but if it's like this, that doesn't make us feel inclusive. There are key stakeholders for this renovation, it sounds like, but I'm thinking we should speak to our key stakeholders to at least get their input, because we can have a design, and it may really not be for them. So I would just offer that as a suggestion as well. I am also concerned about the funding as we move forward through this year and, of course, into next year.
Ms. Coulter, anything you want to reply to?
Certainly, through you, Your Worship, I probably should have done a better job of describing the project. So sometimes we have these islands of accessibility. So the bleachers will have accessible seating in different areas. It's important to be able to get to them. So the apron in front of the building right now, so we've done a great job of renovating the washrooms up there. They're accessible. We have water filling stations. So it's important to create exterior paths of travel that provide opportunities for people to park and then be able to access those bleachers. The bleacher footprint will be smaller and certainly take into account the area. I think those bleachers have been removed now that we're really in the way of the new player shelters. I don't know why the name's escaping me, but dugouts, thank you. But the funding is $125,000 from the sponsorship, with then the difference of $75,000. Not to say $75,000 isn't a lot coming from those other areas. The Coke sponsorship is specifically earmarked for that project.
Okay. Councillor Hamley?
The report mentions that you considered alternatives. I was just wondering if you could maybe speak to what was considered.
I wasn't actually in that meeting. I know they talked about modifying the concrete work. They talked about modifying bleachers. The concern with modifying the bleachers is they come as a package and then you start to monkey with warranty. There are some grading issues and issues of drainage around the park, so they want to make sure that when they're putting the bleachers in, that they're addressing the exterior paths of travel and those grading and drainage issues. So I have a lot of confidence in Kristen Schreider and Adam, and I know they met with Sutherland's to look at refining the scope to try to find savings, but they really did feel that doing that compromised the integrity of what we set out to do here.
Okay, other comments? If not, Ms. Bloomfield, if you want to poll council.
Councillor Gregg?
Opposed?
Councillor Hanley?
Opposed.
Councillor Kepke?
In favor?
Councillor Merton?
Opposed?
Councillor Thomas,
In favor?
Deputy Mayor O'Leary,
In favor.
Mayor Body.
In favor?
The resolution carried with 4 in favor and 3 opposed.
Okay, thank you. 12H, asphalt replacement program, 2019.
Thank you. Through your worship, city staff is seeking council to award the contract for the asphalt resurfacing to EC King Contract in the amount of $530,771.02. The city received 2 bids. The successful bid generates a surplus of approximately $31,000 in the budget item. The surplus will remain within the capital account pending the outcome of this project and the Connecting Link funding grant for the rehabilitation of 16th Street East. You may have noticed that the list was short in terms of the roadways where the work is taking place. We concentrated on the roadways that just needed resurfacing, not just needed resurfacing, but also formed part of the detour route for the 10th Street Bridge. It kind of hits, these are high priority roads that need resurfacing, but they also will be in heavy use during the rehabilitation of the 10th Street Bridge.
Thank you. Councillor Gregg?
Well, I'd move approval of that tender. It needs done before we get 10th Street Bridge closed, so hopefully they can get on those streets and get them ready for the detour.
All in favor? And that is carried. 12I is site plan approval, completion date extension.
Thank you, Worship. Yes, in 2016, Council had granted site plan approval for the construction of a concrete batching plant together at the site of the Dolomite plant at 2250 20th Street East. June of 2019 was established as the completion date. This is an administrative request, and staff recommend a 1-year extension to June of 2020 for the completion of the work. The letter from Millers explains the reasons for the delay. So we're looking for council to approve the request and authorize a bylaw to amend the existing site plan agreement to June of 2020.
Thank you. Councillor Hamley?
I'll move the recommendation.
Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. What am I down to? 12J. I'm circling this like mad, and I may have crossed some out. Strategic Asset Management Plan Policy, I think, is the next one. Yeah. J, 12J.
Thank you, Your Worship. This report is requesting council's direction to bring forward a bylaw adopting the Strategic Asset Management Policy. This policy is a legislative directive that requires municipalities to outline their commitments to best practices and continuous improvement for the asset management program. The attached draft policy has been reviewed by supervisors, managers, senior staff, and all 3 standing committees. The report's recommendation is that council direct staff to prepare a bylaw adopting the attached policy.
Thank you. Councillor Kepke?
I'll move the recommendation.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 12K.
Thank you, Worship. This is a request from Wealth and Property Solutions for council to consider a second extension to their amendment to the, a second amendment to the DC extension agreement. If council will recall, this is a 7-unit conversion of that dwelling on First Avenue A West, and the building was moved. The building permit was issued originally September 27th of 2018 with occupancy goal of March 1, 2019. There was an extension to August of 2019, and they're proposing an extension to October of 2019, and the applicant has suggested it will be sooner if possible. The CBO reports that work is progressing well with the construction at the building. The recommendation is that council would authorize a second extension agreement to October 31st of 2019 for Wealth and Property Solutions for the property at 1010 First Avenue A West.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Deputy Mayor O'Leary?
Thanks, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation.
Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. at HJKL. Report from Deputy Mayor O'Leary on Grey County Council last week.
Thank you, Your Worship. County Council discussed the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan development. That is a government-mandated policy to be in place by January 1st, 2021. Municipalities are required to work in partnership with police services and other sectors, including health, mental health, education, community social services, and children and youth services as they undertake the planning process. In recognition of the numerous stakeholders across Grey and Bruce counties, this will be a collaborative process to develop a safety and well-being plan for the 17 municipalities of Grey Bruce so that each municipality can customize, adopt, and implement a plan. And for this, the county will provide a one-time grant of $55,000 to each municipality to develop the plan. Just to note too that I think there's been about 3 or 4 meetings now. Both Councillor Kepke and I have tried to get to all of them. At least one of us have been to each one of them. Council approved window replacements at 305 14th Street West in Owen Sound. Vandoller Custom Exteriors were awarded the contract at a cost of $700,000 plus taxes. And I made a note here from Public Health. As you know, I sit on the board, but there was a report to County Council. The 2019 Ontario budget has proposed to improve choice and convenience for alcohol consumers. Our public health partners feel that what's missing from these proposed changes is an acknowledgement that this increased choice and convenience is likely to come at the expense of public health and safety. The Grey Bruce Health Unit can support municipalities to develop and implement policies in response to the Alcohol Reform Plan to reduce alcohol-related harms in their communities, if Council chooses to do so going forward. Thank you, Your Worship.
Any questions? Seeing none, down to number 13, the consent agenda.
Through you, Your Worship, on the consent agenda this evening are 2 facility booking reports, one respecting the Fall Fair and one respecting Ribfest. There are minutes for receipt from the Police Board and the Owen Sound Community Fund. Several businesses were issued final approval, including Steve Con Packaging and Logistics at 3225 East Bay Shore Road, Unique Epoxy Countertops at 2045 20th Avenue East, Mazur 2 at 864 27th Street East, E&H Property Management at 224 8th Street East, John's Barbershop relocated to 1041 2nd Ave East, Kaboom Fireworks is located in the Canadian Tire parking lot, Meg's Drywall at 770 2nd Ave East, Popeye's Restaurant at 1350 16th Street East, Paul Henderson Transport at 24 Lamson Crescent, and Bombshell Stella's Food Truck at 402 8th Street East. Lastly, there is correspondence presented for the information of Council. A full listing is available at 13F.
Good, thank you very much. Councillor Kepke.
Moved by myself that City Council receives items 13A to 13F on the consent agenda dated July 15, 2019, and further that the recommendations contained in reports 13A and 13B be approved.
All in favor? That's carried. At the 13th, thank you. At 13C, Owen Sound Police Services Board meeting, Councillor Kepke, anything you want to update us on?
Just a few highlights from that meeting. 117 auxiliary hours, 21 collisions investigated. Training initiatives are taking place with other police services. 104 court custody cases, and there were concerns expressed regarding a 14-hour delay in OPP prisoner transportation. There were almost 4,000 bulk searches that took place, and 1,212 calls for service took place.
Good, thank you. Questions? Seeing none. Owen Sound Community Fund.
Planning is underway for the Random Act of Kindness event scheduled tentatively for the first Friday in November. Discussion also occurred regarding promotional ideas for the Owen Sound Community Fund to increase awareness and future grant fund available for the community initiatives and community groups. There will be a Community Foundation Grey Bruce 25th anniversary celebration, September 28th at Cobble Beach, and will include a founder's dinner. Stay tuned for more information regarding this event. There were 3 recipient groups who received Community Fund grants this past week, and they included Active Lifestyle Center, Grey Bruce, Safe and Sound, and the Rugby Club. I request approval of those.
Already approved. That's
Sorry,
part of
we're
the
done.
consent, so you're
All
done.
right.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Merton? Seeing none. Good, thank you. 14 on our agenda, 14A, Minutes of Accessibility Advisory Committee. Right back on. Left stage, on right.
The Accessibility Advisory Committee reviewed the site plan for the Anpet residential subdivision, the site plan for Heritage Grove, and recommendations were provided for both of these site plans. The City of Owen Sound Multi-Year Accessibility Plan, Sections 1 to 32, the pillars Customer Service, Information and Communication, and Employment Standards were presented to the committee, and the city staff will present the additional pillars regarding transportation and design of public spaces in July. The committee and the general public was advised to communicate any accessibility concerns, issues, or inquiries to the city in whatever manner they feel comfortable using, including phone, email, in person, whenever they become aware, not wait for the committee to meet, if they are aware of an issue, so the city can continue to take prompt action. And that's it for those.
Okay, so moving approval of those. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 14B, Minutes of Corporate Services Committee. Go ahead.
Well, I note the chair's not here and the vice chair's not here, so I could speak to it, or I could just make a motion to postpone these minutes to the next council meeting because it was 3 reports just for information's sake.
Or you,
And
can,
they're not.
or you can just move them and council's read them, so we'd
Yeah.
move them ahead, but not necessarily of the public presentation. So if you want to move those.
I can do that. It was, and I'll just for the public, we had a unanimous support by the committee in approving the updated policy related to video surveillance. We added the Regional Rec Center in 2016 and recognized that at that point the 2010 initial policy needed to be updated. So currently under the Freedom of, I guess it's the MFIPA, Freedom of Information Act, signage is required anywhere that video surveillance is in use. And we now have added an audit log, or which will be added to track the access and release of video. We had an annual review of the HR metrics. Owen Sound slightly above the municipal industry average. We had 43 workplace incidents in 2018. Most common was slips and falls. We had 7 cases of LTD in 2018, 4 of which were in the fire department. The listing by department is included in the report. And in total, our WSIB premiums were $519,992, but no surcharge, leaving a refund of $151,315 for a total of $368,677 in 2018 in WSIB premiums. So that information was carried for information. I should note that the HR department, along with our employee assistance providers and the benefit providers, continue to work to reduce our sick time as well as STD costs. And thirdly, we had, well, just the annual attendance at meetings for council, so no discussion really on any of those.
Good, thank you. So you're moving for approval of those minutes. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Minutes of Economic Development Committee. I saw some sign language that, and it appears Councillor Thomas won the debate.
That's right, Your Worship. Normally, Councillor Dodd would present these, and I'll try to fill those big shoes tonight. We did have our meeting recently and considered a number of issues. One of the first items we had was a follow-up on the Retail Business Holidays Act. This was a follow-up to the public meeting and draft bylaw, and ultimately we passed a resolution to receive the report and to approve a bylaw under the authority of the Retail Business Holiday Act to exempt local business from the Act on the following days: Victoria Day, Canada Day, Labor Day, and Family Day. So 4 of the holidays in the year will be exempt. Now, that does not force any business to open. That gives them the option to open if they choose to do so. We had a report from our tourism marketing coordinator on Savour Owen Sound, which was generally very well received again this year and will be proceeding next year. A verbal report from the Grey County Manager of Economic Development, re some of the initiatives they have going up there. One of them was the county's regional attraction and retention campaign. They've contracted BC Hughes Marketing, which of course did our very successful Are You Most campaign, to work on it with them. And they're really focusing on three groups: high school students, seasonal visitors, and students who are going to post-secondary school outside of the area, but to remind them that there are a lot of job opportunities here for them when they graduate. And we're going to hear more and more of this as time goes on, because everybody is struggling to find employees throughout the Grey Bruce, Simcoe, Huron area, and you'll see more and more campaigns to try to bring workers to this area. And I guess we wrapped up. I did a verbal report on a pop-up shop concept that I think the city should take a look at, and we did pass a recommendation asking staff to include it in the 2020 work plan and to bring forward a report describing how we might be able to tailor the plan for Owen Sound. And the final item, we had an update from a small subcommittee that's been working on Sunday shopping, and they've developed a questionnaire that they hope to circulate to downtown businesses, asking a number of questions about Sunday shopping. Do they support it? Are they open? Are they closed? How do they feel about it? Just to get a baseline of some information about what's going on, because I think that of the many things we hear as politicians, certainly from downtown, it's always speculation about why nobody's open on Sundays. So this group is working to get sort of a baseline of information and try to really establish what the general feeling is downtown. So with that, I would move approval of those minutes, Your Worship.
Thank you. Questions? No? All in favor? Oh, wait a minute. Is that a question? Go ahead.
Well, more of a comment, actually, and I just wanted to, we disagreed earlier tonight, not too long ago, on a matter, and we'll disagree next month when we pass the bylaw on it again. But I just wanted to note, congratulations, Councillor Thomas. That's your work on looking at the pop-up shops, I think should be noted. It's quite impressive to see that extra work that's gone into looking at solutions there to fill some of those stores downtown, and I thought that's an informative and a necessary and needed report, so I just wanted to pass along kudos on that.
So Councillor Thomas has a nose for value. Oh no, that was Pop Shop. Never mind. Okay, with that report, now everyone's getting tired, including me. All in favor? That's carried. Operations Committee, Councillor Gregg, July 9th.
Okay, thanks, Mayor Body. We opened with a deputation from a gentleman who has a lot on 9th Avenue East. His parcel fronts 9th Avenue East, and the city reached a shared servicing agreement a couple years ago with landowners who are all fronting 9th Avenue East, and this is somewhat between 21st Street and 23rd Street East, to give people an idea of where we're talking about. The rates at the time of that agreement, which was agreed upon by the developers that own those properties, based upon frontage fees for water and wastewater, and stormwater fees were based on the area. And if I'm incorrect on that, I'm sure the director will correct me. But we reached an agreement a couple years ago. This gentleman made a deputation to committee asking that committee relook at the fees that are pertinent to his property. A committee didn't have any interest in opening that discussion again. We're encouraging the gentleman to go back, work with staff, explore different alternatives. He was thinking he should be subject to a reduced rate because his parcel is not residential, or he had various other factors that may not suggest he would or should pay as much, but we as committee felt fair is fair and advised him to go back to working with staff on furthering his development forward. The reason I guess I should add that probably we don't want to open that up is in the future a property gets sold, we've established different rates for different people, and then you go through a zoning amendment like we did again tonight, and it turns into a residential use, and you can see the problems that would emanate from that. We also had a letter received from a gentleman on 14th Street West near the bridge known as Henderson's Gully or Henderson's Bridge. There's a bit of digging that's been done in the past, which has led to some degradation of the road surface. Our operations department, Public Works, is aware of it and will take some measures. They've got some funds in the budget to be able to respond to that letter and the concern at that area. We had our annual airport report, which was received for information, and as you are aware, the 10th Street Bridge detours was spoken to earlier tonight. We also had a report on finalizing changes to the downtown loading zones. They're all in the report. Basically, it's updating a very old downtown parking and delivery zone bylaw, and some of these new zones are in response to what's precipitated by the bridge coming out as well. And finally, we had our annual wastewater system inspection report, which came forward back to the city June 24th. It was conducted March 22nd by the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. They identified 2 items of non-compliance, total suspended solid limit. The monthly average is 15 milligrams per liter, and in August of 18, the average was 15.75. September 18, the average was 18. Staff resolved these operational issues, which were just encountered, it being a new plant, and all the results following have been within the limits. The second item was the chlorine effluent residual limit of 0.02 milligrams per liter exceeded on September 18th with a result of 0.04. Staff have actually purchased more accurate lab equipment, which has resolved that item. So both resolutions have resulted in no further actions required at this time, and it was mentioned to Jamie Fenton, who prepared and spoke to the report. The chair and committee recognized what was an excellent report again this year. So congratulations, I'm sure, extend from council as well to that department and to their team. And with that, I'd move approval of those minutes.
Questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Good, thank you. Matters postponed, we have none. Motions for which notice was previously given, none. Discussion of additional business, Councillor Gregg.
Maybe thanks, Mayor Bai. I thought I had lost it, but I'm just giving Councillor Merton the extra chance to get out of the room. But we're aware of a cellular tower which is proposed to be constructed just off the Eddie Sargent Parkway. There's a commenting period ends or closes July 17th. I want to bring this up here tonight. I have concerns. We had it through the correspondence package 2 council meetings ago, so we've had a chance to look at the process that this has went through, and I have concerns with it. It acknowledged in the documentation that the city doesn't have a formal policy, and I'm thinking we've had one on the East Hill a couple of years ago too that was erected.
A tower, not a policy.
A tower, yeah.
Yep, okay.
And I'm thinking we should be looking at a framework or a policy to perhaps assess these. It was somewhat referred to in that original report. There's also a comment in the report where if it was constructed on federal land, it would require an environmental assessment. So if it was on the other side of the harbor, the feds own that property, it would go through a much more stringent public process than what this seems to be. And I have concerns with just leaving this type of development to the discretion of height as it relates to consultation with the affected or impacted parties, because this is proposed to be, I believe, about 30 meters. I'm not sure, it's not thought there'll be a light that goes on it, but anybody that lives anywhere close to these that do have a flashing beacon, it is a terrible occurrence or inconvenience or something to bother them in the evening. So if this didn't have a light, it's still, your ability or your need to consult with the community, seemingly you could go to 35 meters, but if you had to consult with 3 times that 35 meters with more people, there's almost a desire maybe then to keep your building at 30 meters if it means less consultation. So the process doesn't seem good. And I think moving forward, what about Bell? What about TELUS? What about other providers? And I'm not sure we want this kind of proliferation of towers just on our waterfront. So I have concerns with the proposal. I wonder what we can do to place comments forward. I know it will come back to council, but I do think we need to have some discussion.
Well, maybe go to Ms. Bloomfield on what it is under the acts or policies, acts or regulations that we can do.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have had a few phone conversations with Mr. Lewis, who's been contracted on behalf of Rogers to lead this process. At this point, Rogers is required to follow the process outlined in the Radio Communications Act, since, as Councillor Gregg said, we don't have our own process. And through the Radio Communications Act, it's the ISED, which is the approval authority. Right now, Rogers is in the consultation phase, with this Wednesday, July 17th, being the last day for comment. And comments can be presented to Mr. Lewis or sent to myself, which I will forward along to Mr. Lewis. Staff have also been circulated on this package and will be providing comment to Mr. Lewis. In August, we are expecting a deputation from Mr. Lewis, who will go over the whole process with council. And a final report will also be coming forward to council. He's suggesting possibly in September, which will be when council will have the opportunity to express their concerns and comment on whether or not they concur or do not concur with the process that Rogers has followed.
So in fact, we can only comment on the process that is set out and whether we believe they have followed the process that is required. We really don't get to comment on the project itself. Is that the way I read that?
That's my understanding, yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
If we could, Your Worship, in conversations, it's our understanding that if council looks at the process and doesn't feel that Rogers has answered the questions of the people who have responded, and we've certainly heard some, and we will be responding with city staff's concerns about a tower on our waterfront, which is vitally important to us, moving ahead. If council feels they haven't adequately addressed those concerns, you would, I'm going to presume, not give them the concurrence that they've gone through the process properly. And it's our understanding it would be highly unlikely that the approval authority would do that with the local municipality not giving that concurrence. So I think there are still, our understanding of the Act and the way it is administered, there are still lots of opportunities on this tower for council to have their say on behalf of their ratepayer. As far as a process for future towers, that may be something we could look at. But again, it comes down to the Act, and we can only work within the acts that we're allowed to. We can't create our own law, I guess is the best way to put it. But we could do a full review of that in the course of time to see what we could do to protect ourselves. But in this case, I feel comfortable the conversations we have, council will get that final opportunity based on all the information, the responses from Rogers agents on this, to either say we believe you've concurred or you haven't, and we're not going to give you our concurrence. So that's our understanding of the process.
I'm going to come back. Ms. Bloomfield, you said that, somewhere it was said that the public has until the 17th to respond or to reply. I know we're advised that they sent notice to within so many 100 feet, I can't remember, it was a very small amount that was only 100 meters? 90 meters. It was only a very few houses that were really within that range, but there would be more affected. Who do they contact if they want to provide input?
Jay Lewis is the gentleman's name. It's on our website, but I could talk to IT about making it more accessible on our website.
Okay, so if you go to owensound.ca, then
Yes.
we'll try and get it on the front page or someplace that's easy to find, so that gives you the link to the person that to contact. Good, thanks. I'm going to come back to Councillor Gregg. He made the comment that in his report, he stated that we didn't have a policy? We didn't have there's something in there.
By default, we seem to have got here because we don't have an existing policy. And I guess in a roundabout way, my concern is that they would meet all the parameters or requirements of their due diligence now, but one of the questions you have to ask yourself as a counselor is this the right thing for our community? And this seems like a project that could kind of meet all the requirements, but it fails that last litmus test.
But in fact, we don't seem to have a default. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Pam.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sort of two thoughts. A municipality can establish their own process. Owen Sound doesn't have its own process, so we follow the process under the federal legislation. As the clerk mentioned, she circulated the application to different city departments. The planning division will be preparing a report using the city's official plan and zoning bylaw. So there are policies in that document with respect to essential services, urban design, compatibility of development. And when the community, when we look for community engagement on our official plan, it's times like this when we need to go back to that plan and look at those policies and provide comments for our community and that represent the planning division in the context of those policies. So certainly the planning division is submitting comments through the city clerk, and we certainly will look forward to Mr. Lewis's presentation back to you in terms of how those comments have been addressed.
Thanks. So I found the note, and it says that we could have our own protocol for these installations. Can our protocol be more restrictive than theirs? I'm kind of swinging in the dark here, but should we have our own protocol is maybe the question that Councillor Gregg was hitting at, but didn't.
And I think a thorough report on the options is certainly worthwhile. I caution us. I don't want to paint Rogers as the bad guy.
No.
We have a public constantly, certainly we hear that. We need more connectivity. We need more of the high speed, et cetera. So, we want to make sure that they provide the towers that our local public wants. We just want to make sure, as much as we can, without knowing the telecommunications business thoroughly, that they also meet our standards for what we want in this community and try to find that nice ground. So I absolutely think a report coming forward is vital to getting this right.
A general report on protocol coming forward at one of the committees at some point. Good, done. Good, thank you. Deputy Mayor O'Leary, you're next.
Thanks, Your Worship. Just want to mention that on August 6th to the 11th, there's a 12-team Canadian Midget Championship fastball tournament in Owen Sound at Duncan McClellan Park. I know we just discussed it. The economic spin-off that we get every time there's a ball tournament in Owen Sound, and the reason that we get as many teams to Owen Sound is because of the facility we have. I don't know how many tournaments we get here in the summer. There's fast pitch, there's slow ball tournaments. Our restaurants will be full, our hotels will be full, and there'll be lots of people here. So that's August 6th to the 11th. They're here, starts on a Tuesday. They're here right through till Sunday. And that's some good fastball at Duncan McClellan Park. Thank you.
Good, thank you. I just want to comment on some things that have been going on in Owen Sound that everybody knows about. I'm going to try and follow the bouncing ball that's going on inside my head. On the weekend, I left Friday and went to a wedding in Ottawa. On Friday night, we had the opportunity to go down to Parliament Hill, and they do a great light projection onto the front of the Parliament building, which traces the history of Canada, and it's changed since we were there a couple of years ago, but it still ends the same as we all know from being at AMO. It ends with the playing and the singing of the crowd of O Canada. And when you look around, everybody around you, there are people from every single corner of this world that are standing there in their traditional language or accent, I guess, traditional dress, religious dress, singing their hearts out, singing O Canada at the top of their lungs. And we've been there before that have been down there. We know how moving that is. and to know what was going on at home with an individual breaking the criminal code. It's that simple. With hate-related stickers, with attacks, a person or more than one person, we don't know that at this point, attacks on a religious institute because it's a different religion and it's identifiable, is criminal. And it does not reflect our community, does not reflect what our community is about. The reaction to those actions are what reflect our community. The way people got out and supported the Muslim community and their mosque over the weekend is what really Owen Sound is all about. I don't look at this as being any different than the arsons on August 10th, 2015. These are crimes. These are people that do not represent our community. They're trying to harm our community, and they're breaking the law. These are hate crimes. It's probably worse than the arsons, because the arsons were somewhat random. These were specific and aimed at a specific identifiable group or segment of our community that is an important segment of our community. Every segment, every religion, every background is so important to our community, to all of us going forward. I really thank the people that got involved in our community to send that message back that this isn't acceptable. I encourage everyone, when you see things like stickers, to phone the police. The police have to investigate this. They have to know where they are. They might be able to take fingerprints. They need to create a record. Posting it on Facebook and doing nothing more is not enough. You have to phone the police and let them know where these items are. That is so important. So I encourage people to be vigilant. I'm confident that the police will do their job. They did in about 24 hours in 2015, and they know what they're doing and they know how to investigate, and I'm confident that charges will be laid at some point. But it's important to be vigilant, to look after each other, and to phone the police when you see something that needs to be reported. So I still think we've got a great community, and we will always have people that are involved. Again, follow the bouncing ball in my head. I was talking to Ms. Abbott, who's involved with the Emancipation Picnic. 157 years this year. And that's quite a statement about our community, but there's probably been 157 years of worry for a minority group, even doing that, and knowing that there's still people out there that aren't understanding, don't understand differences between us. And it's, I think, a real tribute to those people that have put on that picnic for 157 years and been part of this community for 157 years. And I hope 157 years from now there's still a mosque that's still thriving, and lots of churches and synagogues and different cultures from around the world. Maybe that by that point we'll be from interglobal and they'll be from different planets. I don't know. But I think it's frustrating. Well, I'm going to babble for an hour. It's frustrating growing up in the 60s, knowing how we have worked so hard to try and eliminate hatred and eliminate the differences between us, to see this happening in our community. So with that, I'll wrap that up. Marion, motion that the Committee of the Whole rise.
Moved by myself that the Committee of the Whole rise and report.
All in favor? That is carried. Notice to adopt proceedings.
Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor O'Leary, that the action taken in Committee of the Whole in considering public meetings, deputations and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports from city staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business be confirmed by this council.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Notices of motion. Seeing none. Bylaws. Ms. Bloomfield.
Through you, Your Worship, the bylaws listed for approval on tonight's agenda include the confirmatory bylaw, a bylaw to amend the traffic bylaw respecting OSDSS, Downtown River Precinct, and Sydenham condos, A bylaw to execute an agreement respecting a waiver for development charges at 1832 7th Ave East for the Gwendon Townhouses. There are facility use agreements for the Crime Stoppers Slopage Tournament and the Owen Sound Men's Slopage Annual Playoff Tournament. A bylaw to execute a facade and structural improvements agreement with Castle Corporation for property at 748 2nd Ave East. A bylaw to adopt an official plan amendment respecting the Red Hawk subdivision. A bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw respecting the Red Hawk subdivision. A bylaw to execute an agreement with Sydenham Properties for a third extension of time for payment of development charges. And a bylaw to execute a site plan agreement for St. Mary's Parish.
Good, thank you.
Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor O'Leary, the bylaw numbers 2019-115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, and 124 be passed and enacted.
And all in favor? And that is carried. So that completes our business for tonight. It is now 9:30. We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.